Welcome back to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany, where we explore cutting edge methods to enhance your health and our health and well-being. I'm your host, Brittany Ford, and I am thrilled that you are joining me today. This episode is for all the people out there who struggle with skin issues, with acne. Man, oh man, we really dive deep into acne today. I don't think I shared this when I recorded the episode. I went through a bout of acne during COVID. No, actually it was right before COVID or something like that. In that year, maybe 2021, something like that. And it was the first time I had ever struggled with acne in my life. So I don't even know. How old was I? Like late 20s? No, not late 20s, mid to late 20s, something like that. And I couldn't believe how much it impacted my mental health. So I'm going to be so honest with you here. Okay. I was getting acne on my forehead, in between my eyebrows. And it was like these little bumps. Like my skin was so bumpy. Like I would look at myself in the mirror, and if I would turn my face slightly towards the light, you would see all of this texture that was new that I was never having. And I was like, what on earth is happening to my skin here? It was atrocious. It impacted my self-confidence so badly. I remember, let me tell you how bad it was, okay? I remember my boyfriend at the time, I remember he took our sheets and towels and he covered up the mirrors in our apartment because I was so self-conscious and all I could see was it. And it was making me so upset and anxious and depressed that he covered up the mirrors so that I wouldn't see it. And I could just have a break and just not think about it. That was the point that I was at with my skin. Okay. And it was shocking because as a teenager, I had no acne. I would get the occasional pimple, right? One pimple, that's it. It's not acne. It was fine. And to go through that, man, it's forever made me humble about my skin, changed the way that I look at skin, and really opened my eyes to being so understanding when people talk about acne and skin problems now. Now, because I went through that, I get it. I know how self-conscious it is when you're taking photos, when you're on camera, when you're on a Zoom call, when people are talking to you and they look up and then you think, oh, are they looking at my acne? Can they see it? Are they looking at my forehead? I have been there. So for me, what really helped was I started doing more of a cleansing practice at the time. And honestly, it kind of went away. It sounds terrible, but I think it was about 6 months and it kind of went away and it got better. It must have been something hormonal. I don't even know. It was really unfortunate. And so this episode, we talk about acne. So we talk about what causes acne. We talk about bacteria with acne, what you can do diet-wise, foods, nutrition, that type of thing, with Maria Marlowe. She's a certified holistic nutritionist. So we really dove into this. She has a 90-day clear skin plan. I probably needed that back when I was dealing with acne. And she has a best-selling book as well. So I think you will, especially if you're somebody who's dealing with acne right now, you're going to learn a lot from this episode, which we love. Before we dive in, let's do DM of the day. This is where I read a DM that I get from you. Usually it's a health question. If you have any questions, send me a message. I'm happy to help you. Sometimes it's a review, but it's just more fun than reading an Apple Podcast review that nobody cares about. That's 5 stars, it's just very, I don't know. Seems like a very boomer thing to do on a podcast is to read Apple Podcast reviews. So here's a DM. Here we go. Hi, Brittany. Skip that part where they're talking about who they are. I found your episode on EMF protection fascinating and incredibly timely. Ooh. By the way, I never kind of really reread these. With the increasing prevalence of electronic devices in our lives, understanding how to mitigate EMF exposure has become a priority for me. Yes, way to go. That's great. Your insights into the potential health effects of EMF and your recommendations for protective measures were eye-opening. I'm interested in learning more about specific products or practices you personally use or recommend to reduce EMF exposure in daily life. Are there any new developments or technologies in this field that you find particularly promising? Ooh, your expertise in this space is really great. Eager to hear more from you on this topic. Okay, absolutely. So, lots to say here about EMF. I have done many podcast episodes on EMF. Please go and search this on my website so that you can get way more information than what I'm about to say. EMF is prevalent in our society. It's definitely something that we need to think about no matter who you are. And it is something that is causing more and more concern for me as I get older and not even as I get older, just as society progresses to be more and more electronic and more tech focused. So some things that I would say, what was your main question here? Specific products or practices you personally recommend in daily life. Yeah. So for the house, I use Lila Quantum Tech. I have 2 of their infinity blocks, and I actually just got their infinity block for my car as well. These help to neutralize the EMF around them and have been shown through, I think it's over 65 different studies to be extremely effective at doing this. So that's where I would start is I would do something like that to neutralize the EMF around you and to understand how that works with their frequencies. They have a lot of great resources on their website. I think that is something that can help kind of ease your mind a little bit. Then I use my discount code biohackingbrittany with them so that you can save. Or just send me a message and I'll send it to you. Then I would also look at reducing your exposure in general. So it's actually probably better to start here, but things like turning off your Wi-Fi at night, turning your phones onto airplane mode if they are in your bedroom, or turning them off or not having them in there at all, really reducing how many things are plugged in your bedroom in general. That goes for your kids as well. So be aware of, do you have like a smart fan or AC unit? Is your toothbrush charging? Is like how many things are plugged in all the time around you is going to emit some level of EMF no matter what you do. Okay. So really just kind of reducing that and trying to be mindful. So like have an analog clock. Don't use a plugged in alarm clock. That type of thing I think can also be helpful. Reducing exposure as well goes to you and your body and when you're moving. So for me, like I have my phone in a wallet that I carry on my wrist. I typically don't put my phone in any pockets. I try to keep it off of my body because I know of the EMF that comes from it. There are phone cases out there that you can get that help block EMF that are wonderful. My friend Marjorie at Junaday, actually this summer, she just came out with a little bag that you can put your phone in when you're carrying your phone so that it actually takes the EMF and redirects it away from your body. So things like that I think are really smart and tactful and can be an easy way to reduce our exposure. Other decisions you can make are hardwiring your house, right? Like instead of having everything work on Wi-Fi, hardwire it through the walls on the floor. It's a lot of work, but could be worth it, especially if you're somebody who's sensitive to EMF. The other thing the hill that I will probably die on is do not get an EV car. Do not get an electric car. There are multiple websites that talk about this. You know, we love the look of Tesla, you know, and all of these nice EVs, hybrids, man, it's everywhere. I will never, ever, ever get an EV electric vehicle, ever. And my husband will talk to me about it. And I just look at him and I said, no way. You think I'm going in that car, let alone you think I'm going to put my kids in that car? Absolutely not. No, we will be the last gas guzzling household before I get an EV. Okay. So that can be an extremely significant source of EMF And think about that though, right? Like you're sitting in this car, you're driving it all the time. Maybe you're commuting. Maybe you do road trips in it, and you're sitting on a battery that you charged through your house, through wherever you went and charged it. Like, if you're not thinking about the radiation that's coming off of that, you're out of your mind when you buy those cars. So there is no way, absolutely no way that we will ever have one. Yeah, it just makes me even angry thinking about it. So think about that type of thing when you're thinking about EMF. Those I think are great strategies. So like get the bag that I talked about from Juniday. Juniday also has like clothing as well, especially for women, that blocks EMF. I have multiple pieces from them. I have 2 play suits. I have a belly band from pregnancy, and that might be it. I should get a bodysuit. Actually, I really want the bodysuit. And so that helps block EMF as well through using shielding fabric made out of silver, because it takes the EMF and it redirects it the other way. Especially if you're pregnant, very important. And I make sure I have so much to say about this. When I fly and travel, I am always wearing EMF blocking clothing. Always. Doesn't matter if I'm pregnant or not pregnant. Always. I will protect my body from EMF because I think it's really important. So keep that all in mind. Juniday, you can use my discount code Brittany. It will get you a nice percentage off. The clothing is really pretty too, which I love. It's not ugly. So it's actually nice quality designs. It's very fashionable, and it's not like just a t-shirt or something. So those I think are some great places to start. Go back, listen to my other episodes on EMF. I will send you some more information in your DMs in our messages as well, so that you have more to kind of go on. And a shout out to Wellness. Wellness creates really healthy self-care products. This is the line of products developed by Katie Wells, who is known as Wellness Mama. So you can use my discount code with her. You get 12% off of everything, which is great. I love their toothpastes, and they are fantastic. And they are actually the #1 sellers on her website and out of all of her products. Toothpaste is really like, it's iffy, right? I've talked about this before. There's a bunch that are great, and you really have to, it's hard to find them, to be honest. And then most of them are kind of greenwashed. They're owned by bigger corporations. They use words that are not regulated that make you think that they are healthier than they are. Be mindful of the self-care products that you buy for that reason. So I love Wellness. That's spelled WELLNESSE at the end.com. And you can use my discount code BiohackingBrittany. It will get you a percentage off of all of their products. And a shout out to Mimeo. Mimeo is a stack of 4 different biomimetic ingredients, and all of these work to help induce a 36-hour fast on a cellular level, and you get all the benefits from those. So I love taking this because I'm not fasting right now. I love getting the cellular benefits from it. And these ingredients work better when they are stacked together, which is why Mimeo put them all together. Super cool company, very innovative, very in the biohacking space. So proud of them. They've come a long way. Again, use my discount, Biohacking Brittany, and you can save. Everything's linked to my show notes and on my website whenever you need it as well. Enjoy this episode about acne. I think you're going to get a lot out of it, and I will catch you soon for another one. Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. Thank you for joining me today. I have a special guest, Maria Marlowe, who is a certified holistic nutritionist and founder of Kuma, which is a pioneering ingestible skincare company. She has dedicated the past decade to helping people around the world optimize their health and achieve clear skin through diet and lifestyle changes. So today we are going to get into all things skincare, all things acne. We're even going to talk about acne that can appear during pregnancy or other hormonal changes that women tend to go through. So I'm really excited about this episode. Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so curious about your personal journey and what led you to becoming a holistic nutritionist specializing in acne. I feel like that's such a niche place to be. Like, how did you get there?
Yeah, well, I had very bad acne. I think that's how a lot of us kind of get into this health world, is dealing with our own issues. And I had acne for about 5 years, despite trying all of the things. I started with the drugstore skincare and then graduated to the dermatologist prescribed skincare and topicals and ingestibles, and the acne just never really went away. And so for a long time, I just thought I was cursed. Like must have had bad luck or bad genes, because I was doing everything that I was supposed to do to clear my skin, but yet my skin wasn't clearing up. And I honestly, I was just so frustrated. I just kind of was relegated to the fact that I was going to have to deal with acne forever. But then I was introduced to this concept of food as medicine, which at first I thought was crazy. But I was so desperate and I was willing to try anything that I said, okay, fine, let me try overhauling my diet, which my diet at the time was the typical standard American diet, lots of processed foods, pizza, McDonald's, soda, all that kind of stuff. And at that time, this was, again, probably over 15 years ago, that at that time, the idea that food affected your skin or food affected your acne, it was always poo-pooed. It would, there's all the dermatologists, all the media. It was no, there's no connection between your diet and your skin. It has changed a little bit now. People are a little bit more accepting of it. But anyway, so I drastically overhauled my diet and my skin cleared up in about 3 months. And I was my jaw dropped, I couldn't believe it. And because of that, because I was able to see in my skin, okay, when I ate those foods that I thought were my favorite foods and that I loved, that's what they were doing to my skin. My skin was red and angry and broken out, had all these pimples on it. But when I ate, the broccoli and wild salmon and the vegetables and the animal protein, my skin was clear. So for me, that's where the light bulb went off. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. And I don't understand why nobody is teaching us this. So I decided to go back to school to study nutrition and cooking and be the person to teach people about this connection between what we eat and, our skin and specifically acne.
I love that. I think that's so interesting. And it's interesting that you found success after 3 months. There's something about the 3-month mark with the human body that something about the 90 days that it just takes that amount of time for these little daily switches and changes to actually kind of move the needle on bigger things like your skin, like you're saying. I have a, holistic fertility course, and it's the same thing. It takes about 90 days of these changes to really make a difference in optimizing our fertility. How did you, I guess what were the big changes that you personally made during that time? Was it, I know you took out processed food, but did you add in more healthy fat and healthy protein every day? What did that look like?
Yeah, so there were a few things I did. So number one was definitely removing the processed foods, which I thought I would never be able to do because I was definitely addicted to them. I was certainly addicted to sugar at that time. I ate a lot of sweets and candy and cookies and all that stuff. But, interestingly enough, as I'm sure you can attest, right? Once you start eating healthier, you actually don't crave the unhealthy stuff anymore. Your taste buds actually change. So I got rid of the processed foods. I added in more vegetables and whole plant-based real foods. That was one big thing because I was not eating any vegetables besides French fries at that time. And so adding that in, the dark leafy greens, the bright orange vegetables, kind of trying to eat a rainbow of colors, which is a good source of fiber, antioxidants, various nutrients. So that was a big one. Adding in more protein and through different animal proteins. And one of the proteins that I felt was really pivotal in my skin transformation was wild salmon. I started eating a lot of that. I didn't eat seafood at all prior to that, but salmon is a really good source of omega-3, which interestingly enough is a very common deficiency amongst people with acne. And because omega-3 is primarily found in, certain types of fatty seafood like the salmon, mackerel, anchovy, sardines, and then it's also found in seeds like flax, chia, hemp, walnuts as well. Most people are not getting enough. And even if you are eating a healthy diet, which I definitely wasn't, but even if you are eating a relatively healthy diet, if you don't include those foods in your diet, it's very possible that you're deficient in this very critical nutrient, which helps to reduce inflammation, reduce acne. So adding in protein, but then also nutrients. Like I was definitely nutrient deficient as well. So adding in, a wide variety of foods to kind of replenish not just my vitamins, but also my minerals, making sure I'm getting fiber. Getting my gut health in order was really a very big part as well. I was dealing with digestive issues at the time as well, but I didn't necessarily realize I was. I just figured I was a gassy person. I was bloated. You only go to the bathroom a couple times a week. Like I just thought that's the way life is, but turns out that's not. And regularity is so, so important for clear skin for multiple reasons. And one of them is our hormone balance, because the way that we excrete excess hormones is actually through our stool. So when we're constipated, the excess hormones that our body is trying to get rid of can actually get reabsorbed back into the bloodstream, contributing to imbalances. So working on my gut health through eating more fiber, drinking more water, movement, taking probiotics, all of that really helped to restore my gut health, get me more regular and reduce the bloating. It is amazing when you can eat food and not bloat. So I would say, so the food, the nutrients, I would say kind of those are kind of the two areas, definitely like being more cognizant of my fats and oils. I'm Italian, so we always grew up with olive oil. So that was already in my house, but just being more aware of even my consumption, say of like vegetable oils, reading labels more. Prior to that, I was not reading ingredient lists or looking at, the box of anything that I was eating. So just becoming more cognizant of that and making better choices all around.
Nice. I love that. Very holistic approach, which makes sense for something like the skin. If someone is listening to this and maybe they've been dealing with acne, on and off, and sometimes it flares, sometimes it doesn't, and they don't really understand necessarily this idea of like a root cause. How would you kind of explain it to them? And like, what do you think is the ultimate root cause for acne?
Well, I think the ultimate underlying root cause for acne is inflammation. And interestingly enough, back in the 1950s, that's when we started to think of, and probably actually before that, when acne was considered a bacterial infection. And I know even when I was growing up, all of the magazines and anything about acne was like, we need to kill this acne causing bacteria. And that was thought to be the way that you get rid of acne. But as it turns out, the bacteria, even though they may play a role in acne, they're not the first domino that sets off the chain of events that leads to acne. Now, since the 1980s, study after study after study has implicated inflammation, chronic systemic inflammation, as that root cause or that first domino that kind of sets off the chain of events for acne. So inflammation, and last thing to kind of close out that thought, inflammation is currently believed to be the primary driver of acne. And in fact, if you look up the definition of acne today, it is considered a chronic inflammatory skin disorder, right? It's not considered a bacterial infection. So that's really the first thing to understand, is that inflammation is really driving acne. Now, what causes inflammation? Many things. It could certainly be our diet, whether that's we're eating pro-inflammatory foods, maybe we have nutrient deficiencies, maybe we're disrupting our gut, medications, things like antibiotics and even birth control and other medications can disrupt our gut microbiome, stress, which also disrupts our gut microbiome, hormone imbalance, right? So there's many different causes of inflammation. So what I would say is trying to assess your diet and lifestyle and figure out where that inflammation may be coming or where that imbalance may be coming. But I will say, whether it's hormone imbalance or stress or, whatever it is, it kind of almost always comes back in some way to diet. Like diet plays such a pivotal role in all of these areas, like hormone balance. And even with stress, like obviously mental stress, you want to deal with that. But like, for example, if you're a stressed person and you're having a ton of caffeine, for example, or a ton of sugar, it's not helping you in any respect. And it's kind of just exacerbating it. So I really feel that diet is the one of the biggest levers we have to pull in terms of bringing our body back into balance.
Let's talk about Mimeo, a breakthrough longevity supplement that hacks your biology to help you look and feel younger. It was created by PhDs in nutrition from over 7 years of clinical research, and Mimeo was designed to mimic the longevity benefits of fasting in a simple daily pill. Not only has Mimeo been shown to extend lifespan in animals by 96%, but users have been able to take as much as 2.5 years off their biological age in just 8 weeks. How? Mimeo's groundbreaking biomimetic formula uses a patented blend of all natural metabolites that work together to help your cellular health from the inside out. First, there's OEA, which is a metabolic supercharger clinically proven to help control appetite and promote fat metabolism, so you can crush those cravings and silence food noise throughout the day. Then there's spermidine, the cellular autophagy activator, helping clear out cellular junk to boost cognition, clear brain fog, and refresh your cells. Next, there's nicotinamide, a broad-spectrum NAD+ booster that's been shown to improve everything from metabolism to skin glow to immune health. And lastly, there's PEA, one of the body's most powerful rest and repair molecules that helps control inflammation, relieve discomfort, and enhance recovery so you can get that youthful energy back. Mimeo is designed to work like a super fast, super efficient fasting diet, but without actually having to fast. It's all about tapping into the power of your own biology, giving your body the cheat code to work its best, making you feel younger and healthier today. You can try Mimeo today. Use my discount code at checkout, which is biohackingbrittany, and you can get all of these benefits in a simple supplement today. Again, that's biohackingbrittany in all capitals. So definitely try it and let me know what you think. I love that. And I definitely agree with that. I think I was talking about this on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, but this idea of inflammation and honestly cellular health and really looking at it from a micro level. And then this idea of like leaky cell. So our cells, like the phospholipid bilayer actually being like broken and toxins being able to get into the cell and disrupt the functioning of cells. And honestly, like that's the root cause of most, if not all, health issues. And then you have to go kind of like what you were saying, like what is causing that? What is causing those cells to actually not function correctly? And it's lifestyle. And then I always think it's so interesting that, and in lifestyle, I include nutrition. I always think it's so interesting that like the thing that's actually causing the issue is actually the solution at the same time, right? So like lifestyle choices and diet choices are causing these health issues. And again, in order to fix the issue that you're only seeing on the surface, not deep in your cells, is actually lifestyle changes and diet changes as well. So it's like really cool to kind of think about how everything is actually very connected and very like 360 in that way, which I love is like obviously what you teach is like very holistic versus like kind of what we see a lot with acne of like, hey, take this medication, go on Accutane or, buy this latest serum that's going to help with your acne or do this 12-step nighttime routine. And I find that so frustrating when I see that because I just feel like how many people are falling prey to that idea of like, let me just slap something on the surface and it's going to make it go away.
Yeah, it is definitely frustrating because there is such an emphasis on the topical. And I understand why, right? Because we're seeing it topically on our skin. So I guess, you would think, oh, let me just put something on top and that will fix it. But we have to remember that acne is really coming from the inside. Now, can you get a pimple from, wearing a baseball cap and sweating or certain makeup and comedogenic products? Yes, but that's a pimple. But when we're talking about acne, this is coming from the inside. And if you've ever suffered with those like deep rooted red, like cystic type acne, it's coming from the inside because you can feel it brewing sometimes for days or weeks before it actually erupts. So acne, chronic acne is really coming from the inside. And that's why the most effective way to address it is actually from the inside. And I always say, when you use your diet and lifestyle as the primary pathway to improve your skincare, you don't need a 10 or 12 step skincare routine. You can really pair your skincare routine and just use something very, very gentle and minimal because your diet and lifestyle is really going to do the heavy lifting from the inside out.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think a lot of people don't want to make that drastic of a change for that long, you know? I think it's a lot of work, and it also causes people to have a lot of like self-reflection, right? Like owning up to being like, okay, yeah, my diet is actually kind of crappy, or yeah, I haven't been detoxing or exercising, right? Like there's this sense of responsibility for your health when you're asking people to make changes every day. And I think I've seen this in different ways, not with acne, but with other clients that I've worked with. Like there is that sense of hesitation of like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. This is a reflection of my choices. Do you kind of come across that as well? Or do you find people are just like so desperate that they're just like willing to kind of do everything by the time they like work with you?
I can definitely agree with what you're saying. I feel like it's a little bit of both. There are certainly people who are so fed up that they're like, literally just tell me to do anything and I will do it. And I don't care. But then there are, of course, people who, like you mentioned, are not ready yet to do that self-reflection or to make those big changes. And I know they're big changes. I mean, food is such a big part of our lives, and it's also a big part of our social lives as well. Like one thing that sometimes people worry about is, okay, well, I want to eat healthy, but I also want to have a social life. I want to go on a date and not be picky or ask for substitutions or things like that. Like, I don't want people to think that I'm high maintenance. And, people have all these fears. And, what I kind of just say to that is that you're really the only person that can take care of you. And so I don't think it's high maintenance to ask for them to, sub the French fries for steamed broccoli. It takes 2 seconds. Nobody cares if you ask for that. And, it's ultimately like you're the one that has to be CEO of your body and the one who is taking care of you. So if you want, like, you have to see like what your goals are, right? Like if you want your skin to be clear, your health to be optimal, then you may have to make a few sacrifices here and there. But once you feel better, you're likely not going to care anymore. Like they're not even going to feel like sacrifices. You're not even going to want the things that you thought you wanted before. Everything changes. So I think the most important thing is just like keeping your eye on the goal. And also knowing that your body is always speaking to you. So any ailment that you have, again, acne or otherwise, is your body sending you some sort of communication that something's not right. And so when we ignore this, the small whisper that it starts at eventually gets louder and louder until it's screaming at you, right? And with something more serious potentially than what you're dealing with now. So I would say it's very important for all of us to always listen to our body. And if we do something that doesn't make us feel good health-wise, then, it's not going to get better over time unless you address it.
I think you're spot on. And yeah, I've seen that narrative many times and people talk about that a lot. I'm curious what you think about people who go on kind of like these prescription acne medications and what you think about it. Like when I think of Accutane, I remember back in high school, like a couple of guys with really bad acne, like red, cystic, like angry acne. My one guy friend, he went on Accutane because I guess he just felt so like self-conscious about it, whatever it was. And I think he had to go on it for 6 months. And I wonder at that point, like, I think we were 17, like his diet and his lifestyle was probably not great. Like he played a lot of sports, drinking a lot, like that whole narrative of like being a high school teenage boy. But then he went on Accutane and it did get better. But I just wonder if even at that age, if he had made like lifestyle switches, if he would have had success regardless of like how many hormones and testosterone and things like that you're dealing with at that age.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, with medications, like they work for some people, they don't work for others. Like I can speak from my own personal experience. I went on the whole totem pole of different medications from birth control to antibiotics to I was actually prescribed Accutane towards the end. It was actually a lot harder to get an Accutane prescription back then. You kind of had to go through the other medications and they not work for you to get the Accutane prescription. And I did fill it, but I remember very clearly I had picked up the prescription from the drugstore, and stapled to the front was that sheet of paper that tells you how to take it and what the side effects are. And one of the side effects was severe depression that could lead to suicide. And I was like, wow, I mean, that's a pretty heavy side effect. And I was already depressed about my skin, and none of the other medications that I had tried worked. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to take this risk. I'm just not, I don't know. It didn't feel right to me at that time. So I just kind of like put it aside, and that was it. I never took it. Now, some people have good results on Accutane, like your friend, his skin cleared. There is research to show that anywhere between 10 to 60% of people who go on Accutane relapse within 2 years. And some people, and again, I feel like it's more common now, they'll go on 2 or 3 rounds of Accutane because, they'll do it, the skin clears up, then it comes back. They'll do it again, skin clears up, then the acne comes back. And I believe this is because it's not really getting to the root cause of acne. And it's the same with antibiotics. Like, antibiotics are actually the most commonly prescribed medication for acne. For many people, they work while they're on the antibiotics. But once you go off within a year or so, the acne typically comes back. And so when we're looking at the efficacy of these medications, like something that, if your doctor says, why don't you try this? Ask them about the efficacy and ask them about the relapse rate, and maybe look into it yourself as well, just so you can see, what the stats are. And also, I do think we need to take into account the side effects, because some of these medications do have very real side effects. Definitely antibiotics can really disrupt your gut, which is why, usually the acne can come back, because we know that there's a connection between the gut and skin. Antibiotics can also cause other infections like UTI or yeast infection, right? Because it's killing off the other good bacteria in your body. With Accutane, you can't get pregnant. It's very dangerous because it can cause birth defects. Same thing like spironolactone, you can't, get pregnant. With Accutane, it's, could be very hard on your liver, on your gut, right? So there are a lot of side effects. And like, in my personal opinion, if anyone takes these medications and they worked for you, I'm very happy for you. There's no judgment. But I think that there is a way to clear our skin where we don't have to risk these very serious side effects. And that is potentially more effective in keeping your skin clear over the long term without relapsing. And that is getting to the root cause of it. So even with Accutane, you had mentioned like the hormones. Accutane doesn't really, it's not really altering the hormones. It's helping with cell turnover, and it basically shrinks your oil glands, which is why people who go on Accutane usually have like very dry lips and dry skin, which can persist even after you stop taking it. Like, my husband was on Accutane in college, and he still has dry skin and dry everything from it. So yeah, so I just think that there is a better way, and it's worth it to kind of explore and really understand, weigh the pros and the cons of any medication you're thinking of taking. And then also really exploring the diet and lifestyle aspect, because I think it's something that is more talked about now, but I guess people don't really believe or understand or know the extent to which food, diet, and lifestyle can actually affect our skin. And there is actually a lot of data. There's a lot of research that shows this connection, right? We know certain nutrient deficiencies, like vitamin A, for example, is very common amongst acne patients. The worse the deficiency, the worse the acne. We know that gut dysbiosis, so lacking good bacteria in your gut or having too many bad bacteria in your gut, can increase the risk of acne. We know that eating too much sugar or a high glycemic load diet has been linked to acne. So there is a lot of information out there. So what I would say is, like, if you're really struggling, do your homework and do your research, and don't necessarily just take the first medication that is thrown your way, but really look at the bigger picture.
If you're feeling out of sync with your hormones or struggling with fertility, I totally get it. I've been there, and it can be so frustrating, but I found a delicious way to support your reproductive health. I have developed hormone balancing, fertility boosting chocolate. This isn't just any type of chocolate. It's packed with adaptogens like maca root and antioxidants from cacao and pomegranate. These ingredients can help regulate your hormones and support your preconception health and fertility. You need to download this recipe ASAP, okay? Because it's more than just a treat. It's a powerful way to nourish your body from the inside out. Imagine indulging in a rich, delicious chocolate that not only satisfies your sweet tooth, but also boosts your wellness. Whether you're trying to conceive, balance your hormones, or just crave a healthy indulgence that you get to make from home, where you get to control all of the ingredients and also optimize your health, this recipe is perfect for you. Don't miss out on this tasty, fertility enhancing, optimizing health solution. You can go to biohackingbrittany.com/pages/fertility-chocolate and download the recipe for free right now. Go for it. It's just right there waiting for you. It's linked in my show notes. It's linked on my website. You're going to find it super, super easy. So treat yourself to better health, one delicious bite at a time. Yeah, I agree with you. And yeah, you're completely right. Like Accutane is not going to change your hormones. It's not going to change your hormone balance or decrease one hormone or increase another. Like honestly, you're better off taking like adaptogens for that compared to like Accutane. But yeah, again, it's like people kind of go for that quick fix, right? Like, oh, my doctor said that this is going to work, so I'm going to try this. And even though these are the side effects for 6 months or for longer, it's tough. It's tough when people are, honestly, it's also extra tough with skin because it's so outwardly. It's what people see when you first meet somebody. And it's so tied to like beauty and like this sense of like looks and things like that. Like people are just so self-conscious about their skin, whether it's acne or sunspots or wrinkles or whatever it is. Like I would say most people are sensitive about their skin, right? Until it looks great and you feel comfortable with it. So when you think about like how personal it is, and then you think about like, okay, I just want the solution. I just want it to go away. You know, you're kind of willing to do anything regardless of what the side effects might be, which is sad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but I understand that because look, I took pretty much all of them. And had I not read it was highlighted on the front thing. So it happened to catch my eye. Had I not read that, I probably would have taken the Accutane. So, I don't fault anyone for taking it, or I don't fault anyone for wanting to get rid of, this issue as quickly as possible. But I will kind of, just say that we tend to think of like, okay, the Accutane or whatever the medication is the quick fix. But the reality is that, first of all, food works a lot quicker than you think. Like I said, after 5 years of struggling with acne, that no medication was able to get under control. 3 months of changing my diet and working on my gut health cleared my skin. And then the second thing is like, sometimes you have to be on these medications for 6 months or longer. Even with antibiotics, some people are on them, for the better part of a year. So I think, yeah, we tend to think like, oh, let's just pop the pill and it'll be faster, but it's not necessarily faster. It is certainly more convenient. I'll give you that, but it's not necessarily faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love for you to talk about skin during pregnancy as somebody who is pregnant right now. I don't know when this episode will be coming out, but recently pregnant. And I have had, to be honest, my skin has been phenomenal during pregnancy. And I usually have pretty good skin, but thankfully I'm not somebody who had a negative reaction to pregnancy with my skin. There's like folk tales out there of like, if you're carrying a girl, they like suck the beauty out of you and then you have bad skin. I'm carrying a boy and if you have a boy, you are like a glowing mama. So I don't know if I believe that, but I am having a boy. So, there's that factor. But I like, what do you think about, I guess, like the women, sadly, who kind of go through 9 months of like, oh my gosh, I have so much acne and I never get acne before I got pregnant.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that. I've heard that as well. And I don't, I don't think it's true, but I'm also carrying a boy and my skin has been clear. But I think it has more to do with regularity than it does whether you're carrying a boy or a girl. And why is that? So during pregnancy, obviously our hormones are fluctuating and in a very different state, right, than they are normally. And this kind of goes for our period, right? Like some women break out on their period and some women don't. And it's not so much the fluctuation of the hormones that's problematic. In my opinion, I think that the issue is how our body is responding and dealing and processing them. And so if we're constipated, which is another very common symptom of pregnancy for many women, well, then we're not excreting those excess hormones when our body is done with them. And that can be contributing to imbalances that cause our skin to produce more oil and inflammation and, lead to breakouts. So I think one thing, if you're dealing with acne during pregnancy is to make sure that you are regular. And how do you do that? You want to make sure that you're eating enough fiber-rich foods, you're drinking enough water, you're moving. If you're taking an iron supplement, that could certainly exacerbate or cause constipation. So, you may want to see if there's other ways that you could get your iron potentially through food would be ideal. But taking probiotics, that's another way just to make sure that your gut is, regular and moving. So I would say like starting with your gut and making sure that you're regular would be really helpful for pregnancy acne and acne in general and hormonal acne, period acne, all that stuff. Making sure you're regular can help. And then the other thing would be to, also making sure that we're still eating a healthy diet, because sometimes during pregnancy, maybe we're eating things that we wouldn't ordinarily eat, more refined carbohydrates or sweets or whatever it is. I've also heard, I'm sure you've heard this as well, that women tend to crave more savory foods when they have a boy versus sweet foods when they have a girl, which it does seem to be the case amongst my friends who are all kind of pregnant at the same time. The boys, the boy moms want the savory and the girl moms want the sweet. But so, yeah, it could be like blood sugar issues, because we know that a high glycemic load diet is associated with an increased risk of acne. So making sure that you're keeping your blood sugar stable throughout your pregnancy can also be really helpful in combating those pregnancy breakouts.
I love that. I think that's so interesting. Yeah, I haven't had any issues with constipation this entire pregnancy. So I wonder if there is any studies or research on that of like the women who deal with constipation are also the women who deal with acne. That would be really interesting to see, or maybe vice versa, like no acne, no constipation. Obviously, maybe not causation, but more correlation there. But I find that is really interesting. And then, of course, the diet. Like, yeah, I'm definitely healthier when I'm not pregnant, diet wise, for sure. But it's hard, obviously, when you are building a human being and you should be eating more daily and all of these things and the cravings and the low energy and, all the things. So that is really interesting. But I wonder as well, like, have you had clients who have been pregnant and have dealt with this acne, and then once they give birth, like it goes away? Is it that quick of like the hormones kind of drop off, things kind of go back to normal, and then their skin goes back to normal?
I feel like there's kind of both scenarios. I've seen it happen both ways where, yeah, some people give birth and like their skin goes back to normal and they don't think about it again. And then for others, it may persist. But again, I think it's also, still having to do with, let's say inflammation in the body, hormone balance, blood sugar balance, gut health. I think it's still linked to this. And yeah, whether or not it kind of lingers or goes away may be dependent on that.
Yeah, because I also think like postpartum acne is probably a thing as well because of the hormonal changes that you go through during that time as well. Like it's, such a drop off of like estrogen and progesterone. You don't have your menstrual cycle back. You're not regulated usually until like about 6 months after you give birth. So that would also be really difficult, is like to deal with a new baby and everything that postpartum brings, and then also have this like skin react in that way would be really hard for anybody to go through.
Absolutely. I mean, acne is no fun no matter when you're going through it. And I totally get, because the thing with it, as you mentioned earlier, it's on our skin, it's on our face, right? It's how we show up in the world. So it also adds a layer of stress, which sort of does not help the situation at all. And so I get, wanting to do whatever you can as soon as you can to get rid of it. So I think, in that postpartum period, especially if you're breastfeeding, you need to replenish, right? Like pregnancy takes a lot out of our body. So it's really doubly important. I think sometimes we overemphasize, trying to eat healthy during the pregnancy period, but we kind of forget about it once the baby is born. But, you could even argue that it's even more important after birth for if you're going to breastfeed, but also just for replenishing your body and getting your body back to, optimal state.
Yeah. Yep. I think you're spot on. I know you haven't had your baby yet, but have you looked into like baby acne or baby skin at all? I'm in these like mama Facebook groups, and I recently saw a post, and this little baby must have been like, I don't know, 5 months old, like really young, had this like red acne. And the mom is just writing this message being like, I don't know what to do. He's being breastfed. Like what is causing this, that type of thing. And I'm curious if you know anything about that, or is that like something that maybe you kind of move into when your own baby comes?
Yeah, so it's not something I'm an expert for in any capacity. It's definitely not acne the way that we have acne. It is called baby acne, but it's not the same type of like acne that a teenager or adult would have. From the very limited research that I have done on it, because I have seen, and actually a friend of mine who gave birth about 3 weeks ago, her baby developed the little spots. They weren't red. They were more just like little white spots on her face. And so the baby is in a watery environment while the baby is in your belly. And then when it comes out into the air, it's a totally new environment. So very often newborn babies will have some like skin rashes and things and bumps and dryness and this and that. And it's because the skin is adjusting to this new environment. Also, of course, their skin is very delicate. So I'm sure if, for example, maybe the baby is being bathed too often, or certain soaps and things maybe could also irritate the skin. So you just want to be mindful there. But what I have heard, and I don't know from experience yet, but I do plan to test it out. Apparently putting breast milk, if the baby has any sort of rash or the baby acne, like directly onto the skin is supposed to be very helpful for that.
Yeah, I've actually heard the same thing. Yeah, I think breast milk is actually so interesting in that way. Or even people use like colostrum as well that's more like ear infections or eye infections. But breast milk on skin is really interesting. And then you see women doing the like breast milk baths, which is really cool. Like obviously you have to have enough supply and that type of thing. But it's interesting that it's so different than adult and teenager acne. But I guess that makes sense because, what hormonal shifts are really happening, I guess, at that age. But yeah, something to think about, because it's like our skin obviously changes so much throughout our entire life, like all these different stages, which means that there's something that we can always kind of do to support it in a different way. Something I've noticed in the last probably few years, you probably obviously noticed this as well, but I've noticed more and more skincare companies coming out with products that have probiotics in them or prebiotics in them. And it's this idea of like replenishing the skin microbiome through putting probiotics straight onto our skin rather than like ingesting them or that type of thing. What do you think about those types of things? Like, do you think that would actually help? Or do you think, again, it needs to really come from the inside out?
So I think it potentially could. With topical probiotic skincare, there's actually not a lot of data. So there is a decent amount of data on the connection between the gut microbiome and the skin microbiome. So for example, we know that there are certain strains of oral probiotics that you could take that would be beneficial for various different skin concerns. So like the strain L. rhamnosus sp1 has been shown in a double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial to reduce adult acne in 12 weeks. There's certain strains that have been shown to be effective for atopic dermatitis, for psoriasis, etc. Now, when it comes to topical probiotic skincare, there is much less research there, and it's not immediately clear now, like what are the best strains to use in this topical probiotic skincare. Now, that said, just because there's not data on a subject doesn't necessarily mean it's not true or, it doesn't work. So I have personally tried a few different brands of probiotic skincare just because I wanted to see. because it does make sense, right? Our skin has a microbiome and we want to make sure that it's got plenty of the good bacteria because their role is to kind of keep those more opportunistic bacteria in check. And, from the few brands that I've tried definitely two, and both of them have left my skin like so soft, so calm, like so happy. And yeah, so I personally, the brands that I've tried, I have liked, but just in terms from like a data perspective, I don't know that there's a ton of research there that we know exactly, what the best strains are to use in these topical probiotics.
Toothpaste. We all need it and use it daily, but have you ever read the ingredients of your toothpaste or noticed the FDA poison warning on there? If not, keep on listening for some surprising information that your dentist might not be sharing with you. Fluoride has long been a common ingredient in many commercial toothpastes, hailed for its ability to prevent cavities. However, recent studies have raised concerns about the potential health risks associated with fluoride exposure. These risks include thyroid dysfunction, dental fluorosis, skeletal fluorosis, and potential neurotoxicity. Given these concerns, Wellness offers a safer alternative that doesn't compromise our health, yet remains effective. Why choose Wellness toothpaste? It is founded by Wellness Mama Katie Wells, and Wellness is dedicated to natural health and uses hydroxyapatite instead of fluoride, a game changer in oral care. Here's why it is a better choice. It's fluoride free, eliminating all the health risks that I just talked about. The natural hydroxyapatite formula strengthens enamel and whitens your teeth. Plus, it's crafted from natural ingredients, gentle on gums, and eco-friendly. I love it. I use it all the time. I love the taste of it. And I don't think I will switch to anything else. So make the switch for yourself today to Wellness toothpaste. Visit wellness.com and use code biohackingbrittany for 12% off your order. That's wellness spelled WELLNESSE.com. Safeguard your health with Wellness because your smile deserves the best. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And with the microbiome, like with any microbiome, you really don't want to throw it off balance too much. Like you don't actually want to throw, a ton of one strain at it every single day, because it's obviously going to throw off the balance of all of the other strains, the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, because it's always going to be bad bacteria, and that's fine. And, it's a microbiome. It's like I always think of it like a rainforest. Like there's so many different species. You never want one species to just dominate and there be like a ton of them, And so I think diversity is key when it comes to the microbiome, any microbiome. And that kind of is what always made me think when I was looking at these topical products that say 2 billion of blank strain. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know if that's like too many. Like, I don't know if that's too much. And that's all that will be in there, right? It's got this like one strain in it and it's just high concentration versus like having 5 different strains and there being less amount of each strain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely makes sense. And that's a fabulous point. And so, yeah, there's a lot of unknowns in terms of the topical probiotics. I know even for deodorant, I'm sure you've seen there are some brands that have probiotics in the deodorant with the idea that because it's the bad bacteria or certain bacteria that are causing the odor, under the arms, that if we add, good bacteria, then, that can kind of counteract it. But again, I'm not sure. And just from reading reviews and things, I have never tried them personally. Some people say they work for them, some people they don't, which is like every deodorant, right? But I don't know that we know like what is the strain, what is the amount that's really going to give us the desired effect.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. One thing that you talk about, which I think is interesting, is this idea of like ingestible skincare. And that's your Kuma line. I would love for you to talk to us about that and explain what that is.
Yeah. So Kuma, basically, my idea behind it was that the best skin starts from inside, right? It starts from the gut. And we have a probiotic called Glow Biome that was formulated with 6 different strains of clinically validated probiotics that support the gut-skin connection. So it does have, for example, that L-rhamnosus sp1, which is beneficial for acne, L. acidophilus, also beneficial. And it's a blend of lactobacillus and bifidobacteria strains that just address different aspects of that gut-skin connection. And, in an independent clinical trial, which we sent it out for, it was shown in 12 weeks to reduce breakouts, the severity and frequency of breakouts, normalize sebum production, and even increase skin hydration. This is another kind of like very interesting area, the connection between like a leaky gut and leaky skin, which again is very kind of new, and at the beginning stages. But, some dermatologists and researchers think that there's a correlation between having a leaky gut and leaky skin, which would mean like a disrupted skin barrier. So that the idea is basically, I just want to kind of, with everything I do, is kind of drive home this point that your best skin really starts in your gut, and it starts with, a healthy body and a healthy diet.
Yeah, I love that. And I couldn't agree more. I think, it's just interesting when we kind of like look at that and think about it coming from within and like leaky skin. And it's this idea of leaky everything now that I hear. Leaky cells, leaky skin, leaky gut. We're just leaking. Everything's leaking. And so how do we support it? I think is in a holistic way, which is obviously what you do, which I think is awesome. If people want to try your Kuma products or work with you or do your 90-day plan, which I think is great, where can they do that and how can they connect with you?
Yeah, so my website is mariamarlowe.com, and Marlowe is spelled Marlowe. So there's tons of information on there, articles, recipes, and my Clear Skin Plan, which is a 90-day plan to clear your skin naturally through diet and lifestyle changes. So that's all there. For the probiotic, that can also find that on my website, but we also have a separate website called kumaglow.co, which is KUMAGLOW.co. And then on social, I'm posting pretty regularly videos on healing your skin naturally through diet and lifestyle changes. So on Instagram, it's Maria Marlowe, and on TikTok and YouTube, it's Glow by Marlowe.
Perfect. I will put all of that in the show notes and on my website so everyone can find you easily. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I learned a lot, and it was just awesome to dive into all things holistic skincare with you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany. If you're interested in finding the show notes or the sponsors for this episode, you can do so on my website, which is biohackingbrittany.com. Remember to follow me on Instagram, where I'm most active. My handle is @biohackingbrittany. And if you're interested in working together and you want to email me directly, you can do that. My email is info@biohackingbrittany.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and having you tune in next week.